public thought at that time. I was curious why you decided to do that at that time.
Hey, Charlie,
Yeah.
you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Can you hear me?
I don't hear anybody, to be honest with you.
Good time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now there's more pressure.
Pressure.
Hey, Ron, back in September is when you first started publicly talking about the idea of you guys competing for the NFC East title, at a point where it wasn't clear that that would be a realistic case. You may have had lots of reasons why you decided to do that. And I'm just curious, why did you decide at that point to make such a public declaration about the division title?
Because nobody's running away from it. And I just felt that, we have some pretty good pieces in place. And we were seeing some things with all those pieces. And I just felt we needed a veteran piece to give us a chance. And by that, I mean a guy that's been in our system. And that's why I made the change. And that's why I put Kyle in, at the starting quarterback position, because I just felt with the pieces we had, why not us? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I looked at it, I looked at the, and quite honestly, there were 6 games that I saw coming up. And I just felt if we could win 3 of those 6 and then see what happens after that, we could be in a pretty good place. And so that's why I did what I did. I just looked at it and just felt it. I mean, I was drawing on my experience of having played and coached in this league for over 30 years. I just felt that there was an opportunity and I wanted to take it and see what happens. And lo and behold, we're in that position right now.
And on a different topic, what was your reaction to the news that Marty Hurney was relieved of his duties in Carolina today?
I saw that. Well, I was watching tape, and a bunch of people, I say a bunch, but I got a few text messages about it. And, it's one of those things now that it gives him an opportunity like I got. And that is with those job openings out there, he's got a chance to get one of them, because for the most part, things will happen quickly. I mean, people want to get going and, we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Ron. I was thinking about after the second interception that Dwayne had yesterday. Do you judge that, or it seemed like his play picked up after that? Do you look back more at how that fourth quarter went after the interception, or do you put so much of a heavy weight on those turnovers that kind of cancels it out?
Well, I think when you look at what happened in terms of the decisions he made, you sit there and go, wow, I saw what he saw, but and maybe a more experienced guy doesn't, or maybe a more experienced guy throws the ball somewhere else. On the first one, you looked at it, we saw what happened. There was a guy breaking to the sideline, and he threw the ball. But you sit and go, wow, he should have threw it a little bit more in front of him, or he should have tucked it and ran, or he could have threw it sooner. But again, you can't fault him for trying to make the play. On the second one, that was that was a tough throw. You wanted at that point, you wanted to just go ahead and take the check down.
I noticed in the past at Carolina, I don't think your quarterbacks used wristbands. Maybe they have, with plays on it. Is that something you like or don't like, or is it just a situational thing?
I think this, in terms of doing this for Dwayne, I think it's one of those things that it helped him. And again, we were trying to put him in the best position to have success, and quarterbacks throughout the league use them. The thought process, I know the thought process from having been around North was that it forces the quarterbacks to really work on it and study it when you don't have wristbands. It's one of those things that was his philosophy behind it. That's why, we never really use wristbands. But with Dwayne using it, you can see the tempo of getting in and out of the huddle was so much faster. He was probably more clear and concise in the huddle for the guys. You also saw that it also gave him a little bit of something to fall back onto and really helped get everybody lined up. So I think there was a huge plus to using it for him. And, going forward, that's probably going to be the thing that we'll do because he handled it very well.
Thanks.
Hey, Ron, going back to Marty Hurney for a second, what did you like about him as a GM? And obviously, this might not be the time where you'd want to address it, but there has been a lot of talk about you guys maybe looking at different GMs or filling that role in the offseason. But I am curious about what your thoughts are in him in that role with Carolina.
I'm not going to talk about our GM situation. That all that stuff, all that personnel stuff, everything that's going to be addressed once the season's over with. Okay. But for me, the biggest thing everybody got to understand is that, we're focusing in on the playoff run right here. We've got 2 games left to play. We've got a good young football team coming in that's very competitive. They've lost a bunch of games this year, but they've lost them by a score or less. They've got an exciting defense. They got some really good young defensive players, and they got some dynamic offensive players. So we want to make sure we focus on them. As far as Marty Hurney is concerned, I really appreciated working with him. He's a very hard worker. He's a very bright man. He knows the game. And if you look at what he helped us build in Carolina when we took our run, it's pretty impressive. He pretty much put a lot of pieces into place. Dave Gettleman came in and finished it up for us, and we had a nice run. I really appreciate that.
And then speaking of Carolina, you're pretty familiar with that franchise. I'm curious if it's too early in the week to start getting some of those emotions that maybe are tied to you for that franchise. What are your thoughts on facing them this week?
Thoughts is that we need to win the football game. We got to go out there and we got to want to play to our abilities. We got to want to play our best. And we got to want to win the game because it's the most important game we're about to play, because this one takes another step. And so we have to go out and do those things. I mean, to me, the emotions of the game is, I was there for 9 seasons, but this late in the season, it's different. If this had been our opener, believe me, it would have been a highly emotional game. But it's not. This game, to me, the consequence of this game is really about this team, this organization, trying to be relevant, trying to take a step forward. So I want to see us focus on the reasons why we want to win the game, as a team as opposed to a personal reason.
Ron, but the reality is, though, this storyline with you facing your former team is probably going to be one of the bigger storylines this week. With that being said, how do you kind of, balance that of not making this game about you? Because obviously you're going to get these questions all week from us, from Carolina media. How do you handle that?
Because the only time I'm going to address it is going to be in this press conference with you guys, and then in the press conference with them. That's the truth of the matter. It becomes a storyline if you guys continue to make it the storyline. I'm not going to. Again, after today, I'm not going to address it until I have to address it with Carolina's media when we do their media call. So, I mean, that's the truth, Scott. I mean, the emotion of this game for me is this organization, and this organization right now is more important than my personal situation. I mean that because we got 53 guys downstairs and a group of coaches that we want to get into the playoffs. They want to get in the playoffs, and we want to do it for them and for us. So we have to focus in on the game.
Let me ask you this. What are the dangers? Obviously, look at Carolina right now. They are eliminated from the playoffs. They can't make the playoffs. You obviously are fighting for your playoff life. What are the dangers of facing a team that really has nothing to play for in this type of a situation?
That's exactly it. They got nothing to play for but pride, development, and I promise you, their coaches, since they have nothing to lose, they're pulling all the stops out. Fakes in terms of special teams will be up. Special plays on offense will be up. Rolling in a bunch of different guys to see what they can do, and guys are going to be hungry because they want that opportunity to prove it. So to me, we've got to approach this game as if everything is on the line in terms of that for both teams. Because again, this is a young football team we're facing. Okay. And so they don't quote unquote know any better. We're a young football team. We really don't know any better either, except for we have something at stake, and we have to focus in on what's at stake. And that is the opportunity to win our division and get into the playoffs.
Ron, you mentioned the fact that you guys are just focused on making the playoffs and winning the division. And it just so happens that if you guys win on Sunday against Carolina and the Giants lose, you guys can't control that. You guys would be in the playoffs with that result. So I guess, how do you feel about the situation? Maybe not so much Carolina, but how do you feel about the situation of if you guys win, it happens to be against Carolina, you guys would get into the playoffs in your first season here in Washington?
Well, I tell you what, that's a good one, Ree. Honestly, I'd be excited. I really would, because we got into the playoffs, and that's really the best thing, more so than anything else. It's just that we got into the playoffs, and that's what the goal is, really, and that's what the goal's been. I'll be honest, that's what the goal's been since week 5. Our first 4 weeks really was about seeing what we were as a football team, kind of feeling it out, but then looking at it to Ben's initial question. No, it wasn't Ben. It was who asked the second question?
Les.
Yes, to Les's question. Week 5 really was where I thought, hey, you know what? We have a shot for the playoffs because of the way the division is. Nobody has started out 3-1 or 4-0, and I just thought, wow, there's a chance. And so that's kind of what we're working towards, Ree, and that's kind of what I'd love to have the focus stay, is that, this is about the organization winning and getting into the playoffs, not Ron Rivera winning and getting revenge. That's the last thing I want this to be, because, in all honesty, I do owe the franchise a lot. It was my first opportunity as a head coach. We got to where we got. We were in the Super Bowl. So, to me, this is not about that. This is about this organization growing and developing.
And then I guess following up, we obviously haven't had a chance to talk to a lot of your assistant coaches because of COVID, and just not get to know them as well too. But a lot of them came over with you from Carolina. And so obviously if you guys were to win, just what would it mean to them? Obviously they trusted you, they came up here, and there's this potential for them to make the playoffs in their first season working with you. And then also you guys still know people from the Carolina Panthers organization. So I guess what would that conversation look like, theoretically speaking, if you guys were to win and possibly advance?
again, this to me really isn't, I don't want this to be, but it's, more than what it really is. And that is, this is a chance for us to get into the playoffs. But I do think everybody would be excited more so than anything else.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, Ron, when the schedule was first released, did you look to see when Carolina would be? And did you see that it'd be like, what was your reaction to when it was so late in the season? Like, did you just kind of take it to April?
I'll be honest. When I first saw it, my first thought was I thought it would be the opener. I really did. Knowing that we were going to play them at home, I thought it was going to be the opener. Kind of like a scheduling thing. And then when I saw it going to be later in December, I figured, you know what, the situation of it all is different because it's so late in the year. And so for me, like I said, I don't want this to be, people thinking, oh, this is a revenge game. I really don't. I want the focus to be on the reason we're playing this game is because we have a chance to get into the playoffs. And that's why we want to go out and play our best and give ourselves the best chance of winning.
And this is a bit more random, but I've noticed throughout the season that you kind of have like sayings that you've used, like the map, the 5,000 reps. I guess, do you use that with your players too, or is that really only for like to reporters or that sort of thing?
I mean, that's when you talk to guys and they talk about things. You tell, hey guys, we know it's going to take a lot of reps. I mean, it takes 5,000 reps for things to become natural, become normal, or at least that's kind of what we use. Yeah. And I probably have a bunch of sayings that I use with the guys that I don't use with you guys. One of the things I tell the guys is be where your feet are. Because I tell them, I says, whether you're here at the facility, you're out on the field at practice, you're in meetings, or you're at home, wherever you are, just be there wholeheartedly. Pay attention to your environment.
Thanks.
All right.
Talking to the players, they felt that the time between the Dallas game and the Pittsburgh game, you guys had 11 days. They thought that was a good team building time or time where everybody got to know each other. I'm curious, obviously you've made that a priority over the years, but how have you had to adjust this year, and have you still encouraged that given the restrictions you're under?
Really can't encourage it because of the restrictions, but it really is one of those things that it's going to be real interesting. Hopefully by the end of spring, when everybody's hopefully gotten their shots and things are returning to normal, that we'll be able to have some situations where we can have group settings and stuff like that, where you can really interact in meetings. I mean, to me, the opportunity really was when we first started in July, before all the restrictions truly set in. I thought the guys were handling it pretty good. I thought guys were getting to know their teammates. I know that 10-day stretch, the guys came in, they worked out. We had to set up times where the guys were going to come in on their off days and work out, do the extra workouts. We had what we call our recovery week, where we used 3 days of practice. We had what we call a recovery day, and then we had the walkthrough, which we did in a 5-day span before we played Pittsburgh. And I thought the guys really took advantage of it. And you did see the guys come in, and you did see the pods of guys, that were interacting because they were there, whether it was the 10 guys that were allowed to lift at a time, or the 10 guys we had in the training room at a time, to keep things socially spaced. They did interact, and I don't disagree with them. I think that's one of the things that's really important is the more they get to know their teammates. I think, you tend to feel good about who you're playing with, who you're hanging out with when you know them better.
And then this Friday's Christmas. I would imagine you want everybody to celebrate and be with their families, but also stay responsible. How do you communicate that message and schedule the week?
That'll be the thing that we most certainly will talk about as we lead up into this, and that is, where we are right now. This late into the season, everything has gone so well. Let's continue to focus in on staying clear of everything and staying healthy. So hopefully we can maintain that and continue. But I most certainly will talk about it. Unfortunately, with the way the COVID restrictions are, typically in the past, what I've done is I've practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and given them Christmas Day off. Whatever day it was. If Christmas was Tuesday, I was Thursday, we would go Tuesday, Wednesday, practice Christmas off, Thursday, practice Friday. But because of the restrictions, Monday and Tuesday, nobody, there's no interaction between the players and coaches. We're going to have to go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and figure out some sort of schedule for Friday. Get them in as quick as possible after the morning, after they've had a chance, because a lot of them are fathers and have kids. And so after they've had a chance to be with their kids, bring them in for a couple hours and then get them out.
Hey, Ron, you talked about week 5 and how no one was running away with it at that point. But then again, there's still 2 games to play. But your team is the one that, took the bull by the horns, won 4 straight. What is it that allowed that to happen? And does that give you a sense of pride that it was up for grabs? You had a feeling and it ended up working out the way so far that you wanted it to.
Well, that's the plus, is that it has worked out the way I was hoping. The biggest thing more than anything else, and I do take pride in it, because what happened was you could feel, the group coming together, and whether it was that extra stretch between the Dallas and Pittsburgh game, or it was really just the fact that when you look at how we played and how things started to really kick you had really good sense every time you put the tape on. The first part of the tape, the first half was always tough to watch because, we kind of wanted to spot teams 10, 15, 20 points. But as you saw it, and you saw the way the defense would bow its neck and raise up in the second half, and the way, the offense clicked, and the way we methodically moved the ball downfield and scored. I mean, that was impressive to me. And there was a sense of pride, especially the Pittsburgh game. I thought the guys handled that, the way they needed to, and they rose for the occasion. I mean, it was the best team in the NFL at the time. And I thought they rose up and bowed their neck and played the way they needed to. And that to me was outstanding.
Just real quick, could you imagine, I know going back to the Carolina situation that, a year later, I know you're not like Miss Cleo, but could you imagine that things have worked out this well with this organization, like you spoke of, not the revenge, but winning it for the organization, this is where you'd be right now in such a important spot, Christmas the year later?
I didn't, because like I said, honestly, when we first started the season, I was thinking about how we can grow this team, how we can develop, what was it going to take. And as I started to see the first few weeks kind of play out, I just felt that there were some things that we had going that I thought were going pretty well. I thought some of the development and understanding of what we're trying to do was coming along. And then, like I said, once we really got past a certain point, and again, I think the Thanksgiving game really, with the energy the guys played with, that was pretty exciting. And that's one thing that's also been really good too, has been the energy. The energy level has been outstanding. And by that, I mean their tempo, their enthusiasm, their willingness to do things, those things all really were that was cool just to watch it kind of develop and grow. And, we still have a ways to go. I mean, we really do. And a big part of it is just knowing how to come out and start a game. I mean, we really haven't started a game the way you'd like to. We've finished games the way we would have liked to. Would have liked to finish better yesterday, but we gave ourselves a chance and we played hard. And that's one of the things that, we talked about early on is, if you do anything, you do play hard. Playing hard really just, it resonates with your teammates. It resonates with your fan base, because they can take pride in the fact that, we're not going to quit. We're not going to give up. We're going to compete. And that's kind of what, you hope for is to always be competitive.
Hi, Ron. Along those same lines, has, in your mind, the chance to fight for the NFC East, has that in some ways expedited the culture change that you've tried to implement?
Yes, Nikki, I think that's a great question, because I really do think that's part of it. I think the fact that we've had something to play for every week has kept that energy level high. And I think that really kind of shows just how important it is to to play hard and play well, because every week we talk about, hey, we control our destiny. Every week we talk about we have a chance. And that, I think, is important, because especially with young guys, they see it. As long as there's hope, I think they feel like, wow, you know what? I got a chance, man. We got a chance. And so we're going to continue to compete. So I think that's kind of helped expedite our growth and development. And I think it's kind of helped with the culture, because, one of the things we talked about before the season started is that, hey, there's going to be protocols, there's going to be rules. We've got to be wary of these. We got to always have them in our mind, because at the end of the year, it could be the team that survives. The team that's got to this point with fewer COVID incidents, may be one of the teams that's on the rise. And so we've kind of worked that way too. So hopefully that's something that stays with us.
When you were coaching at Carolina, or even in years earlier when you were an assistant elsewhere, did you pick up on things that you thought, if I were a head coach and I had more control over the roster, these are things I would want to try to replicate, or these are things I would want to do differently?
Oh yeah, very much so. I from my time with being with Dave Wanstead as a head coach to Andy, to Lovey in Chicago, Norv in San Diego, and then obviously playing for Mike Ditka, there's a lot of things that I've tried to take and have made notes on that I have in a book that I keep, and I'll refer to those things, as to different things that I wanted to do, different ways of handling things. Probably the biggest thing I got more so than anything else, from being around Andy is everything's about tempo. You practice at an up pace. Then I get to Chicago, and I'm with Lovie Smith, and really learning from the defensive side was the finite points of what you have to do and how important it is to pay attention to those little things. And then from North, the many different things about teaching your guys and how to handle. I mean, to think, I got to where I am today by myself, I think is ludicrous. And so, to all those coaches I've worked with or worked for or played for, yeah, I owe a debt of gratitude, because I took a little something from each one of them.
We got time for 3 more.
The playoff scenario that Ree outlined earlier, where you win and if the Giants lose, you guys are in next week. Is that something you'll emphasize with your players, or is that sort of out of the realm of things you'd like them to be thinking about?
That's out of the realm of things I want them thinking about. The only thing I want them to think about is what they want to do, and how important it is to them to want to take care of our own business, to control our own destiny. I think that's the most important thing, because you can't count on other people. You really can't to win or lose games for you. What you have to count on is yourself, and I've always said this too. And you can ask people who've been around me. I've always said, I'm going to make a bet on anybody. I'm going to bet on myself, because I believe in me. I believe in us, and that's what I want. I want us to control our situations or circumstances. And, we've got to work hard this week. We've got to prepare hard this week, and we've got to do things the right way.
Hey, Ron, obviously you've been talking a lot of football questions. I guess I'll just throw a curveball at you. What's your favorite holiday moment with your family that's most memorable?
Wow. That's a tough one, Darren, because I've been fortunate. I've had a lot of really good Christmas moments, from having grown up, in a military family, and having had Christmas, with my dad in Vietnam, but, getting a present from him and, a note that was, something I always remember, because we were in Seaside, California, way back in the day. That's a pretty memorable one. From the first one I had as a husband, the first one I had as a father. I mean, those are all cool memories. That they really are.
Hey, Ron, you've used a lot of phrases, kind of like we were talking about earlier this year, be where your feet are, difference between important and interesting. I wonder, are there any others that you found particularly applicable to this year, or that you thought has maybe kept your team, in it every week, like we've been saying?
I think asking them to focus on what we do and how we do it. I think that's one of the things that I do say every day, with the guys, whether it's just before we break the huddle for practice, or it's on the Zoom call. But it really is, I think the guys have to understand that, if we go out and do our jobs and do it the right way, we give ourselves a chance to win. I say that too a lot too. And that's what I think is most important, is that you always have that opportunity. And if you take advantage of it, and you give it everything you got, you may win more than you lose, but at least you can walk away knowing you gave your best.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, everybody.